it all comes down to pricing. Cash flow is always a function of not pricing enough to generate some free cash flow. Well, it starts with having the data to tell you what do you need to price your work at in order to survive, in order to make the profit you need to live the life you want to, and then to be able to explain why you're worth it.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street, and this week you get to meet Stephen King. No, not that Stephen King. This Stephen is the founder and CEO of GrowthForce. GrowthForce is an outsourced bookkeeping, accounting, and controller service for companies that use QuickBooks. Their vision is to provide businesses and nonprofits with dedicated teams of technology that become their smart back office. That's what he calls it, smart back office. Stephen has a passion for helping businesses and nonprofits reach their growth potential. GrowthForce is one of the nation's largest cloud-based bookkeeping, accounting, and controller services. Stephen is also the founder of the first company to deliver accounting over the internet, Virtual Growth. Welcome, Stephen.
Gordon, thanks for having me.
Well, great to have you. Why don't we just start off kind of at the beginning? What does GrowthForce do, and sort of how'd you get into this?
So GrowthForce is an outsourced accounting department, right? So we have bookkeepers, dedicated bookkeepers, staff accountants, controllers, CFOs to help nonprofits and small businesses that are using QuickBooks be able to focus on what they do great. People come to us because they're frustrated. They're working really hard and they're not making enough money, or if they're a nonprofit, they're working really hard and they don't have enough money. They're not raising enough money. They're worried about having cash flow to be able to keep the business alive, and they don't have the work-life balance because they have to be the jack of all trades, and it's really hard to be the chief chef and bottle washer. So taking this non-core competency, the back office, off their plate and getting experts to do it better than you could ever do it at cheaper than hiring one accountant is a recipe for success.
Now, your niche, I believe, is, you said it's companies using QuickBooks. So that's really, you try to focus your customers on using QuickBooks, and then you provide the accounting and advisory services for them. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, what I came out of Ernst & Young. Spent 7 years there. I was a manager of accounting system design. I learned how to build really big accounting systems. And one of the things I realized was, if you can get management reporting out of your accounting system, you can make data-driven decisions. And if you can make data-driven decisions, you're going to be successful. And the challenge is that most people use QuickBooks as a checkbook, right? They write checks, they do billing with their customers, they'll pay payroll, they'll make deposits, and that's it. And then they produce an income statement and a balance sheet that their CPA uses to figure out how much taxes they got to pay and to make the bank happy. And they're not able to look at, the single most important decision every business will make is pricing. They don't have at their fingertips the data to make pricing decisions. And so we decided to specialize in QuickBooks so that we could unleash the power of QuickBooks. 88% of the marketplace uses QuickBooks. Yeah. But they use it as a checkbook, not as a managed reporting system.
Right. And just to continue on that, you really try to focus businesses on, I guess, cash flow, really profitability. And you mentioned pricing, which is important. It's not that you're just advising them on paying taxes, as you said. It's not even just on how to sort of grow the business. It's really on trying to how to be a profitable business. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. The idea is that a lot of businesses struggle with cash flow. And so I've been doing this for 36 years. Right? I've been a CPA through 8 recessions. And when I look at, the companies that are wildly successful, living the dream, and the ones that struggle to survive, it all comes down to pricing. Cash flow is always a function of not pricing enough to generate some free cash flow. and covering, every job you do, every widget you produce, every billable hour you have has to cover its share of your overhead and then generate some profit. And it's the profit that creates cash flow. And so you solve that problem, then you can live that American dream.
Interesting. So, it sounds easy. I should just have prices that enable me to have profits or cash flow. But many businesses probably feel if I raise my prices, customers will turn away from me. They won't come back because they'll be price sensitive, go someplace else. So what do you say to them?
Well, it starts with having the data to tell you what do you need to price your work at in order to survive, in order to make the profit you need to live the life you want to, and then to be able to explain why you're worth it. And the mistake that most businesses make, and I see this at large $20 million businesses and $200,000 businesses, they say, I'm going to price my jobs based on how much it cost me to do the work, right? So if it costs me $100 and then they put a target gross profit margin, not net, but gross profit. If I want to make a 50% gross profit, then I got to charge $200 to deliver it. And the problem is that when you start with the top line and say, okay, I'm going to look at the costs and figure out pricing, by the time you get to the bottom line, you're not pricing based on what your overhead is and what your personal goals are. And if you can deal with your own self-worth and your relationship with money, right? Do the hard work of the mental side and say, I'm worth it. I'm busy.
Do you find that most small businesses that's it? They just use QuickBooks to kind of do their taxes and they never really use the data to drive their business decisions?
Yeah, it's even worse than that. That yes is the answer, right? You get an income statement and a balance sheet, and you'll get some sales reports, some revenue reports. You'll get some receivables. You'll see aged accounts receivable or aged accounts payable, and you can see how much cash is in the bank. But first off, they're all historical, right? You're just looking backwards. It's like the box score in a baseball game. It's going to tell you who won last night. But what management reporting is more like Moneyball and Billy Ball. You ever watch that movie with Brad Pitt?
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
I remember well. Yeah.
Well, the Oakland A's couldn't compete with the dreaded New York Yankees. I'm from Queens, so I'm a Mets fan. And the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Boston, the big tier cities, right? So they had to figure out how to use data to find cheaper players. And the equivalent of that in business is management reporting and management accounting. And what management accounting is looking at unit economics, right? What does that mean? That's a fancy word for what's the revenue that you get on the work that you do minus what does it cost you to deliver the work that you do. And then you look at that profitability at the smallest possible unit, right? Whatever your billable hour for the electrician, right? The billable hour for a service person, for a project might be your smallest unit. If you're in manufacturing, it's your widgets that you produce, whatever that is, looking at that profitability and then working backwards from the decisions you're trying to make to study the past to help you predict the future. Like, for example, we got a client, Chief Outsiders. They've been with us for 10 years. They grew from Art Saxby, who started this business, to now, they're got 65 chief marketing officers all over the country, eight-figure business. And what he wanted to be able to do is to see which marketing campaigns work and generate the biggest return on investment.
Sure.
Well, in QuickBooks, you can go in there and set up a custom field called lead source. And you create a drop down that says, okay, was the lead source the website? Was it a networking event? Was it sponsorship, webinar, whatever your list is? For every customer, you choose the lead source. And now if you're tracking your costs for each customer and you're already doing your billing for each customer in QuickBooks, now I can look at that profitability by customer and by lead source. And we could see which of the lead sources generated the biggest profit. QuickBooks allows you to do that. That's why it has 88% market share. It's really powerful, but most people don't know how to do it.
Yeah, the old John Wanamaker saying, half the money I spent on advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half. and it's it doesn't have to be that way, because now you can, if you really use the tools available, you really can track, what did I spend, how many leads did it generate, how many of those converted, what were the sales and ultimately profits I got out of it. But it takes some work.
That's why outsourcing makes so much sense. You turn a weakness into a strength by leveraging other people's knowledge.
Yeah.
And you find people who do. My mindset is, as a business owner, you just want to focus on what you do best and outsource anything that's not a core competency. And that's the companies that do that are the ones that really live that dream.
We have to take a quick break, 30-second break, and we're going to be back with more from Stephen King. Don't go away.
Hey everyone, this is Corey from SB Pace, and I'm a co-host of BizQuick podcast and Defeat the Chaos radio show on the Voice America Business Channel. We had a great time recording our episode of Winning on Main Street with Gordon, which aired on January 13th. If you're looking for some quick and actionable tips for your small business, be sure to check out that podcast with Gordon and our other content, which you can find on sbpace.com.
And we're back with more from Stephen King. So we only have a few minutes left. Just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about today and small businesses and your thoughts. It feels like we're in a very kind of strange period economically. We have this high inflation, interest rates going up, volatile stock market, supply chain issues, employers having trouble attracting and keeping workers. You're speaking to clients all the time. How are you recommending to clients how they handle what's going on in the world right now?
Yeah, I mean, every crisis is an opportunity. And so this is really a chance to step back and look at your business and figure out all the things we started this on. What is your unique selling proposition? What's your value? And what we're advising every single client, I'm going to get on a call with a client right after this and talk to them about increasing prices right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has gone up. And a couple of big things have happened, right? Number one, my vision in 1995 was to deliver accounting over the web using video. For 30 years, 95, 2005, 2015, 28 years, right? We've been trying to do that. It took the pandemic for the clients to be willing to get on the video, right? My managers would say for decades, I'm happy to get on the video, but my clients don't want to get on. Amazon has made it easy to do everything. How does that affect your business to have instant notifications that for us, your financial statements are ready, your books are, reminder, we're going to have a call today and here's the link and all that automation of the process. But the bigger impact, and it's right now, is to go back and look at what do you anticipate your cost to be over the next 6 months, and to work backwards into those calculations of profit first, profit per unit, overhead per unit, and then what's the gross profit per unit, to go and look and say, okay, inflation is real. The biggest driver for me that I see is wage inflation, labor inflation, right? There have been decades of stagnant wages, and all of a sudden, the people are voting with their feet, and that has just caused, what we would say on Wall Street, a mark to market, right? What is the real value of each person? Whatever anybody will pay. And because there's such a shortage, those prices are going up and they're never going to go back down. It's not like wood. This is not like microchips. Okay, when that big factory in China starts producing the chips and shipping them, the price will normalize. Labor's never going back down. Health insurance is not going back down. And so you got to look at the true cost to deliver your services. And now's the time to go in and have that conversation with your prospects and explain why you're worth it. And what I have found, I'm a data junkie, right? We've been having these conversations for decades. It's over 80% of the clients that you serve, if you go in with a price increase and you give them 3 options. This is the secret, right? If you do value pricing, you always give 3 options. I have to increase my fees to reflect the true cost and the value that we're delivering. And especially if you have time leakage, time that you're paying for, but you're not getting paid for, right? All that extra stuff that your staff give away, you've got to get your hands around that. And you got to show them what the real value is that you have to charge for. That's option 1. I'm going to increase your fees. Number two is I can stay within your budget, but I have to reduce the number of hours. I have to use cheaper materials. I have to use lower skilled people, whatever it is. I have to cut the scope if budget is a concern for you, or I need to transition you to another service provider. Because if you're good and people are happy with your work, over 80% of the time, your clients are going to say, yeah, the cost of me switching and the risks of not getting what I need on such a critical value and the expense and the time, it's worth it for me to pay you 12% more.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and just be prepared that you may lose 20%. Well, if you add back new clients at the properly higher priced margins, all that extra goes right into your bank account. And that's the change. And I've seen this literally hundreds of times when businesses figure out their pricing model and then replace bad money with good clients. You say you're serving the same people with the same clients, number of clients with the same people at higher margins. That's how you live the American dream.
What's next for GrowthForce? What do you see happening over the next, 24 months for your company?
Well, we're at a point now where, we suffered along with everybody else from the Great Resignation.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a big 18,000 square foot office here in Kingwood, Texas, which is really nice. They decorated it beautifully and it's home. And but we kind of forced everybody to come back, and a lot of people said not so much. So we've moved to hybrid, and we actually closed down in the end of December and all of January because COVID numbers in Houston really went up, and we're starting to bring people back. For me, the single most important measure of success is employee retention. Mm-hmm. And so, for us, we've been known for having a great culture. People would join GrowthForce and not quit. My COO has been here 15 years. My director of onboarding 16 years. My salesperson's been with me 16 years. That's the kind of company that we set out to build at the beginning. And so for us, it's going back to that, making sure that we have a culture where people look forward to getting up every day, and when their feet hit the ground, they say, I get to work at GrowthForce. And figuring out how to have that culture in a hybrid world, and then making sure that the compensation is adjusted for the realities of the marketplace. That's kind of the number one rocks for us for this year. And then I think the other one is, and the way we do that is by institutionalizing a career development program, a learning management system. If you're a bookkeeper and you want to be a staff accountant, being able to visualize what does it take to get from here to there, and then all the way up to director. That's what's keeping me busy right now. And it's very rewarding to take the knowledge that people have got from working here 8, 10, 12 years, and then put it in a way that you can replicate it for others. That people would come here because they want to build a career, not just get a job. And so that's the goal for me, and I've always say here, I signed a 10-year lease, January 2020, perfect timing. And somebody else, one of my leaders today is going to be the one who renews that lease because I'll be 70 when that happens. And when I look at this next decade of my life, I think it's about helping change lives, both of our employees' lives, and then helping them, train them to change our clients' lives, nonprofits as well as for-profits. To me, that's what gets me out of bed every day.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Well, Stephen, it's really been a pleasure having you join us, and I hope our listeners will really seriously pay attention to some of those bits of advice, because I think it's super helpful in terms of how they can not just run their businesses better, but run their businesses more profitably and ultimately live a better life. So thank you for that. And I did want to make sure to ask you, if people want to get in touch with you, inquire about using your services, how do they best do that?
So our website is growthforce.com, GROWTH force.com. On our website, you can stop by and listen to our podcast for business leaders, Path to Profits, at growthforce.com/podcast. And that's got a lot of lessons from our growth-driven business leaders who have scaled their business, and with a focus on profitability, because it's not how much you bring in, it's how much you keep them at ours. I'm also you can email me, Stephen, STEPHEN, like Stephen King, the writer, Stephen at growthforce.com, or I'm on LinkedIn, Stephen King CPA, and Twitter, Stephen King CPA.
Great stuff. Well, Stephen, again, thanks for stopping by. Great to have you on the show. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please tell a friend or a colleague to subscribe, and please leave us a 5-star review if you can. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, make it a great week.